Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 100 of No Spin Rodeo. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia, and I'm joined with the First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism, my favorite, Miss Kendra Santos, and we have a special guest, Kallie Wright, with us today. Today is going to be an interesting, open conversation. For me, my interest in this is about people that are amazingly strong and survive unbelievable circumstances and continue to walk forward in their faith and become examples for others. So, Kendra, I'm going to kick it over to you and we'll get started and I'll ask a few questions. Kallie, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
And for those of you that are wondering what this is about, the Wrights, Kallie and her husband, lost their little baby boy in June. And a year ago, a little over now. And so with the recent news with that beautiful little girl, we just thought it was appropriate to try to kind of have a coffee table conversation about this. And we have seen through what you've posted and what you've done, Kallie, and then I'm going to turn over to Kendra, your strength and your really very transparent, open communication with the world about what you went through and how you moved forward, I think is the crux of why Kendra said it perfectly. You were the first person that she thought of when we thought of this episode. So Kendra, I'm going to hand it off to you and Kallie, and I'm going to listen, learn, and maybe ask a few questions.
Okay, well, Kallie, obviously we know that your husband Spencer is the 2014 world champion saddlebronc rider and has won over $1 million riding bucking horses. But tell us about you, Kallie.
Okay.
Oh, and also, you guys, is this right that you guys have been married almost 8 years? Is that right?
Yeah. We got married in 2018. I think that's where we're at. I think 8 years in May. We've been together since 2014. Just actually barely started dating right before he won the world. And yeah, time flies.
But you've been out there giving lessons and things, lessons related to horses, but what kind of lessons? Riding?
Yeah, so I do a lot of high school girls. I train horses, obviously. Well, I don't know if that's obvious, but I like to train horses and compete a little bit with barrel racing. Of course, it's slowed down a lot since we started having a family, but my parents and Spencer are both really supportive, so I'm still able to do it. And I love giving lessons. I love helping the youth. I feel like it's something that I'm good at. So I do lessons at my house. I took a little break, obviously, just had a baby 2 weeks ago, but I'm back up and going, and I really enjoy it. So that's what I've been doing today and a lot more this week, and I really enjoy it. So mostly high school girls. I get a few older girls, but I love it. I love working with animals. I've learned a lot over the last years. I learn every time I give lessons, I learn something new from someone else, and it's a growing experience for me. I love to help, and I love to see them get better too. So
for background, for people who aren't familiar with your family, tell us about your children, names and ages.
So we have Steely. She's our oldest. She is 6. She'll be 7 in another month or so. And then Levi was next. He would be 5 in March. And then Bray after him, he will be 3 this August. And now we have baby Creed, and he's 2 weeks old. So, 3 boys and a girl. Steely's not too
Is
happy about that, but she's gotten the hang of it.
do does one of Levi's little brothers have his Levi as a middle name?
Creed does, yes.
Creed
So
does, the
the
baby.
baby that we just had, and that's because there would be no Creed if it wasn't for losing Levi. And I apologize if I get emotional. It's a little bit of it's kind of a crazy thing to wrap your head around that you've got this little baby only because you lost a baby. Because we were done having kids. We'd taken all the precautions to be done having kids. And I'm a little older. I'm going to be 37 in June. And as the PRC likes to remind Spencer, he's a veteran. So we kind of felt like after we had a few months to come to terms with everything, we were like, are we going to have another baby? Should we do this? And we felt like that was the most fitting name because we feel like Levi sent him down to us, and we would have never met Creed. There'd be no Creed. We wouldn't know him without Levi's sacrifice. And so, yeah, he absolutely needed to still be a part of our family with his name and being there. And as time goes on, we're going to teach Creed about that middle name and what that means. And, yeah.
So the world lost Levi. You guys lost Levi June 2nd, 2024, right? But May 21st is the day. And I don't know what you're comfortable talking about or not, but
Yeah.
what are you comfortable saying about May 21st?
There's not a lot I'm not comfortable saying. Nothing's hidden. I do get a little nervous, I guess, just because not so much to this audience. I feel like this audience is the audience that showed up for us in our darkest hour. And so there's not really anything that I'm afraid to hide. It's the rest of the public. The people that aren't a part of the Western industry at all, the ones that, for lack of a better term, shamed me. But for me, like when you say June 2nd, I almost have to think about it because that's not the date that stands out in my mind. The 21st is the date that stands out in my mind. That's the date that I lost the Levi that I knew. And whether he were still here or not, it would still be that day. Because he was going to be changed forever. But brief little story of what happened. We had dentist appointments that morning, and it was honestly my first outing, which Bray was 9 months, with all three of them and just myself. So Spencer didn't come with me, my mom didn't come with me. It was just me and the three, which was a little intimidating to drive an hour. We live kind of out of the city, so drive an hour, took Steely and Levi to a dentist appointment early that morning. And did that. And then I remember one thing I talk about a lot is there was something different feeling about that day. I remember walking around my car 2 or 3 times, checking everybody's seatbelts. All of my kids are in car seats. And I just had something that I needed to check everybody's car seats multiple times. And so we went down there. After that, we went to the park for a minute. They definitely wanted to stay longer, but I had recently started giving Bray formula and not breastfeeding. And so I didn't pack formula. I wasn't used to packing formula. So we played for a little while. I specifically remember I got on a swing while I was watching them run around and play. And Levi came and he sat on my lap and he straddled me and laid up against my chest, and we swayed together for a short time. But I remember just holding him and just being like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. We went home and we were doing bubbles on the back porch. And Levi spilled his whole thing of bubbles, and I got frustrated with him. Natural parenting moment, like, and he kept asking me to drive his little green tractor. And I kept telling him that it was dead because the way this tractor worked is you had to pop the hood in order to charge it. And when I saw it in the garage, the hood wasn't popped. So I knew that it wasn't charging. And that was kind of Spencer's thing. He always charged the tractor. I didn't even know how to pop the hood. So Levi was very much in this phase where, like, I would tell him, this snack was gone or this was this. And he would say, well, can I check? Can I check? So he wanted to go check that the tractor was actually dead. And I had just barely fed the baby a bottle and put the baby down for a nap. And I remember I had the bottle like in my hoodie pocket, and we walked out, and Spencer had actually taken something and cut the side of the tractor so that he didn't have to pop the hood, that he could just shove the little plug up in there and get it charged. And so it was charging. And he was like, see, Mom, it's charged. And so I opened the garage, and him and I had a conversation right there. He said, I want to go to Grandma's house. And I said, Grandma's not home. My mom was volunteer teaching horse 4-H. My dad was at some kind of appointment. 90% of the time, one of my parents is home. And so Levi and I had a conversation. I said, Grandma's not home. I said, you can't go on the busy road. You'll get hit by a car. I said, you can't go through the water. And I said, so just drive around here. And I pointed to the backyard. We have 4 or 5 acres just right here of land, doing nothing. And I said, Mom's going to go in and wash the bottle. And so he starts driving around, and I watch him for a minute. And then I walk back in the house and I wash the bottle. And as I turn around to go back out, I hear the dryer stop. Oh, I'm going to grab the clothes out of the dryer. Things like that happened for what felt like a couple minutes, right? I got to grab this. And I picked up that. And as I walked by, just how you live, how people are. And just to rewind a little bit, obviously, between me and my parents' house, there is a creek that runs through there. And I would say it's not a tiny little creek, like it's more like a canal, I would say. And we've lived here, my parents have been here now 5 years, and we've never really seen a ton of water in it. It is the runoff from the mountains. But a couple days prior to that, there was a lot of runoff from the mountains. So we all knew there was water. In fact, we had another nephew in our family drown in an irrigation pond when Levi was a baby. I took Levi with me to that funeral. And so we always told our kids there were sharks in the water. We had a lot of talks about it. And it's just, I can't explain this to anyone. And you just had to know Levi, but he was extremely intelligent for a 3-year-old. And I love my current almost 3-year-old, but Levi was different. He was very advanced. Like, he spoke very clear sentences. He said big words. He spoke in paragraphs. Like, you could have actual conversations with this tiny little boy, and he understood, and he was just very advanced that way. But anyways, so, as crazy as it sounds, I trusted him to listen to me and the things that I said, because not only was he really smart, he was very cautious. And because we sat and we had the actual conversation, you can't go on the busy road, which it's not that busy. It's a dirt road. However, it doesn't have any speed limit signs, and I feel like people go Mach 90 down it all the time. So, I wish you would have picked the road, if we're being honest, that day. There was a time that Spencer got his truck by the water, and Levi was scared to death, and he was crying out the window, and I came and grabbed him, and I'm like, it's okay, Dad's not going near the water. And I don't know, just knowing what I knew about Levi, I truly never in my wildest dreams did I think that he would take his little tractor and try and drive through that water. But I will say, after that dentist appointment, he very shy of people, and he let them take his x-rays and brush his teeth, which shocked me that day. And he was brave that day. He was almost just different, there was a side of him between the dentist office and that I just hadn't experienced yet. He wasn't afraid and shy and cautious that day. He was brave and just relentless, you know. Um, so I went out there, I looked around, I didn't see him anywhere. Spencer has a bunch of his like tractor attachments parked over there where you can drive through the creek. Um, and Levi would always like sit on the backhoe attachment and pretend that he was driving the backhoe while we were feeding horses or things like that. And so I assumed that he was there. I called my dad. I said, Dad, are you home? Can you see Levi over there? And he's like, I can't see him. And I was like, okay, well, let me get over there and check. So I jumped in my Ranger. And what's weird is I never had a bad feeling, but when I jumped in my Ranger, I was driving a million miles an hour. I drove over there like a bat out of hell. And I got to the opening of the road through the creek and I saw his tractor in the creek up on the bank in the high grass. And I knew instantly what had happened. I got out. I remember I looked down at my shoes and was like, do I want to wear shoes or no shoes? I said, you're going to probably want shoes. It's rocky. Jumped in with my shoes, had my phone, immediately called 911. One thing that I kept telling myself is be clear, be calm. The faster, like, don't be irrational or they're not going to understand you. The clearer and calmer that you can be, the faster they're going to get here. And so the 911 call really wasn't that long. And at that point I was like, maybe he like jumped out, and I asked my dad came running over and I told him what happened, and he went back over to my house. Maybe he went to the front, I went out the back, like something like that happened. My dad was looking around everywhere else and I was in the water. And when my dad came back and was saying that he couldn't find him there, I knew that he for sure was in the water. The first person on scene happened to be Levi's best friend, James, his only friend, I should say, Dad, who's a highway patrolman. And I remember looking at him and I was thinking, like, I think I know him, but I didn't know him. And it was weird how, like, I saw his face, but I couldn't, like, I don't know. It was in a weird shock. And by the time that more first responders and just people from the city, there were hundreds of people there. I remember my entire road just filled with people walking back and forth. And the creek goes under my road that leads to my house. And at one point, I just fell in the water and I went into shock and I was screaming, find my baby. And a first responder dragged me out of the water because I couldn't carry myself anymore. You have a few minutes of power and rush, like you don't just instantly give up and lose it, right? You're looking for your child, anyways, they pulled me out of the water, and honestly a lot of the rest is a blur. I remember my neighbor holding me saying, we're gonna find him, and what felt like seconds later they said, we found him, they're working on him right now. And then they said that, he was going to the hospital, and they asked if I wanted to meet him there, and I said yes. Somebody, I don't even remember who, drove me to the hospital. And I'm soaking wet, and I remember being in there, and somebody had brought me a change of clothes, and my sister-in-law took me into the bathroom, and she had to change me because I was just shaking, and I couldn't speak, but she got me into some dry clothes, and they took me back there, and I don't know why I had to stand so far away from him. He was like 20 feet away on a table, and I knew a lot of the faces in there. Beaver's a small town. But they just said they were gonna lifeline him to primaries, and like at this point I just didn't like understand, like I just knew that he was alive. That's all I knew and all that mattered. And I asked if I could go with him, and they did. They let me get on the chopper with him, and we took him up to primaries, which is about 3.5 hours by car. And it was about an hour in the lifeline. We actually had to stop halfway there and switch to a pediatric unit. So I can't even remember if we switched helicopters or not. Again, I was just very like tunnel vision. I don't know. I remember calling Spencer several times and telling him, and Spencer had stopped. He was on his way home from Cloverdale. He had stopped in Idaho to have his bronc saddle worked on, and he was about as far away from the hospital as I was. So he was going to come that way and meet me. And thank goodness he was there by the time they got Levi in and like let us see him. And gosh, I could talk about this forever, but anyways, they let us come in. I was so grateful to see Spencer. I don't think if he couldn't have gotten there when he did, I don't know what I would have done. But they finally got us in there, and the doctors were in there, and I just don't know what I was expecting, or I knew so little. And I remember this one doctor, she looked at us and she said, "This is an unsurvivable injury." And I didn't even know what was injured. Like, I didn't even know that, like, you would get, like, a brain injury if you don't get oxygen to your brain. Like, I knew nothing. And, I remember just crying, and I just said, "Well, can I be with him?" Because it felt like they always just kept you at such a distance. And so I got in bed with him, and they said, "Take your time, like, let us know when you're ready." Which is, well, never. I'm never ready. And so I laid in bed with him, and Spencer was on the side of the bed, and at this point it's probably like 11 o'clock at night or something, and we laid there, and we laid there, and we laid there. And when do you build up the courage to stand up, walk out there, and tell this team, like, you're ready for what? Like, I don't know. We didn't know anything. The only thing we knew was that we didn't want him to suffer. And so we brought a team in that morning at about 6:30 in the morning, and that's when they change, like, shifts. So it moves on to a new doctor and a new set of people. And that doctor, I'll never not be grateful to her. Because she was a little nervous saying this, but she flat out said, "It's too early. Like, it's too soon to do this." And I was like, "Well, that's how I feel, but, like, you guys made us feel like what choice did we have, you know?"
And by do this, you mean to disconnect life support? Is that?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I didn't even fully understand that he was even on life support. Like, there was so little said to me that I just, like, and maybe there was more said to me, and it all just, I mean, we'd been awake all night, obviously. So she did what they called a neuro exam, and looked at his eyes and messed with his hands to see if he'd squeeze back and things like that. And she goes, "Did he do this before?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." I'm like, "I don't even know what you're doing." And so she explained it to us, and she's like, "I just think it's too early." I'm like, "If you think it's too early, then I dang sure think it's too early." I'm like, "I didn't know we had options." And that started our, week and a half journey in the hospital in the PQ, which is the pediatric intensive care unit, that, ultimately resulted in the same thing. But that week and a half bought us time and understanding and a lot of things that we maybe wouldn't have had, had it not been for that doctor.
In the end, after that amount of time, you were given the decision again, the same question. Are you ready? Or, I mean, surely it's your decision, right?
Right. And they didn't, after that, they didn't really, like, press it at all. I'm a researcher. If I'm planning something, making something, I look everything up. I call everyone. I was putting updates there on social media, and I got connected to 10 to 15 different neurologists across the state, or excuse me, the country. And any of them that would talk to me, I would have them look at his test results and his scans, and I would ask them questions. We had to pay money to talk to one doctor that does, like, these hyperbaric chamber treatments for kids in Levi situations. I even joined some groups on Facebook because I wanted to know what it would look like if I brought Levi home. And I wanted to learn about that because I didn't know what I was going to do. There's a lot of information being thrown at you. But I would say like I spent that whole week and a half having conversation after conversation with neurologist, learning a little bit more about his condition, about the level. So what he ended up having is what they call an anoxic brain injury, which is caused by lack of oxygen to the brain. And so, yes, I could have brought Levi home. He would have been severely handicapped, and he would have had a feeding tube. He would have had a machine breathing for him.
No quality of life.
Yeah, none. I mean, and not even a little bit. I remember Spencer and I were like, well, if he could do this, we think that my number one thing was if he can experience joy, that's it. Like, I didn't care if he was like stuck with a infant brain the rest of his life, if he could experience joy. But in that week and a half that he was in the hospital, they do these things called neurostorming, and it's the most awful thing you've ever seen. Basically, it's like he has an attack of some kind where he's in some kind of pain. You can tell. I don't know if it's physical, like I don't know, but their limbs and everything turn in, they tighten up, like it's horrendous. And a couple of times that he did that, tears rolled down his cheeks, and I said, this is not joyful. He's like, that's not okay. And so, but you know, I had to do as much as I could do to research it, to find out what that would look like. A lot of moms, I'm not gonna lie, encouraged me to bring him home, and their kids were home, and I was a little disappointed by that. But I did have one mom who I credit her so much, because she had twins that drowned, and one of her twins was okay, and the other one is severely handicapped. His name is also Levi. And she's the only one out of all the moms that I talked to that I feel like gave me the cold, hard truth. And it was what I really needed. I almost felt like, I don't even know if this is okay to say, but I almost felt like the moms that had kids home on life support were encouraging me to do it in almost a misery loves company kind of way. Like, oh, if I can do it, you can do it, or join this group, you know, is kind of how it felt, but it wasn't about me. It wasn't about if I could do it. It was about Levi and what it would mean for him. And not even just him, but our other kids, you know. The one mom that did give me the truth was like, I haven't been to my oldest son's football games, not one. I haven't been to my daughter's dance recitals. You know, I'm home with Levi, taking care of Levi all the time, you know, and she told me that stuff. And, you know, her Levi still isn't as handicapped as my Levi would have been. And I don't know, by the time it came to that week and a half, we had done so much research and looked into so much and come to the conclusion. I mean, there wasn't a single neurologist that was like, yeah, one day he's just going to wake up and be normal, or even half normal, or be able to sit up on his own, or eat on his own, or breathe on his own, or anything like that. There was not a lot of hope, you know. And when I say not a lot, I mean like any. There was a lot of encouragement to do the hyperbaric chambers and all the different things, but from what I discovered in my research is, you know, there is a good chance that the years of the hyperbaric chambers might have gotten him to breathe on his own. Years of that might have gotten him to breathe on his own. But what we felt like best case scenario was, and how far it could bring him best case scenario over a period of years, still wasn't enough. It still wasn't. It was maybe 20%, and we needed 60 at least, you know. But if it hadn't have been for that doctor, if it hadn't have been for that week and a half, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to look into all of that stuff and feel so confident and sure in our decision. I haven't had a single moment of regret for what we did for Levi. And obviously one thing you mentioned, Tommy, is that we are a people of faith. And I won't sugarcoat it and pretend like my faith has gotten stronger from this, because it is touch and go. It really is. But I remember saying to Spencer, I'm like, is this not where we were hoping he would go at some point? Is that not where we wanted to send him at some point? Like, there was a part of me that was grateful knowing where he was going and that he was safe and protected and all of those things, and even though it wasn't on my timeline, at least that's where he was going, because that's the end goal, right? So yeah.
It feels like that. I don't know how else to come to some sort of peace. If that, I don't know. You held him
I did, yeah.
for his last breath.
They told me that it could take, I think they said like up to an entire day. And I told Spencer, I'm like, I'm so scared that I won't be holding him when he actually takes that last breath. I'm so scared that I'll have to get up and go to the bathroom or something and I won't be able to hold him. And so we really had no idea. I want to say it was like 17 minutes after, and they just breathed slower and slower and slower. And I could tell and it's not a pleasant experience. You don't ever want to do that.
He was ready.
He was ready, but it's one of those things that it was like, yeah, I don't want to experience it, I want to do it, but like, you're going to be there for your child. There's just no other option. And I'm really grateful. Levi never knew anything other than pure devoted love. Not once. So, I knew that we did the right thing, and there was a feeling of relief for both Spencer and I afterwards that we wouldn't have to see him neurostorm anymore for the rest of his life or anything, because that just one of the most awful experiences, just that whole situation and everything that I learned,
I don't know if you, in the aftermath of that, like, I don't know if you go into a fog. I don't know. Do you even remember the service? Do you remember the service? Have you been clear on everything, or were there times when you just don't even remember?
I mostly remember everything. It's everything else insignificant that I forget. Because you do get like brain trauma, and I think people think that you forget that moment, but I think what happens is that moment and all of that takes up so much of your space in your brain that you start to forget all the other like minor little things. I feel like I've never been bad at texting back. I've never been bad at calling back. I've never been bad at so many things, remembering appointments, whatever, until after losing Levi. And I'm just terrible at all those things now because it's just not the forefront of my mind anymore. But as Levi's mom, and just the way that I personally handle everything, and everybody takes grief and takes these things completely different. But I got like another wave of that strength that I was talking about, and Levi's service and honoring him was now the most important thing to me. And I credit my sister-in-law and my friends because they held everything else together. I couldn't even, to be honest, I couldn't even like fathom or process or think about taking care of my other children in that moment. Everything was about Levi. And so I remember coming home and being like, he's going to have this, I want this, I want that. and I single-handedly planned his celebration of life and his service, and I needed it to all be a certain way, a way that as if Levi himself could have planned it. So his celebration of life, there was a lot of activities for the kids. There was like a big corn pit with tons of excavators and loaders and tractors and things like that. I had everyone in the community that could bring their tractors and excavators and just park them out front. It needed to be a party that Levi would want to be a part of. We served his favorite foods, which probably seemed a little silly. So we had popcorn and mac and cheese and ham and rolls and chocolate milk and root beer. And so, but I needed to be able to like send him off in such a way. Like I kept saying, this is the last thing I get to do for him. I don't get to plan any more birthday parties or anything like that. This is the last thing I can do for him. So it was really important to me that it was perfect. And as hard as it was for both Spencer and I to talk at his service, nobody knew him like we did. We owed that to him. And so it just, in that time and planning his service and all of that stuff, like, I was like, I'll grieve later. Right now, it's about him and honoring him and doing what felt like was right by him. So that's what I did, and I don't regret a single thing.
I'm not sure how to put it. A few days ago, I don't know if you would happen to know Kelsey and Ryan Domer, who just lost Oakland, also 3 to a tragic accident, freak accident. What can you tell the rest of us about what we can do for them? How do we help them right now?
If I'm being completely honest, you can't. There's just nothing that you can do. If you're close to them, you can just be there, sit in silence with them. If they want to talk, be a listening ear. But there's really no amount of I'm sorry's or prayers or, everything that was done for us. It definitely humbled us in a way, but it didn't lessen the heartache. You can't, and that's the thing about it is everybody wants to fix you. Everybody wants to take that pain away, and we really just have to accept that you can't. And the other part is that like we don't really want you to, like I'm not saying that we're happy being dark and upset and hurt like this, but it also is what shows our love, like we can't just move on or get over it, and everybody grieves so differently, I think
If with this being so fresh, if you were to walk into a room and just you and Kelsey Domer, what would you say to her?
probably just give her a hug. We just have a good cry together. I remember a gal that she pro rodeos too. She's made circuit finals here in the wilderness circuit. Her name is Amber Spencer. She lost her little boy Conley to a freak accident. He was roping. I can't remember exactly. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think just he met the horn in the wrong spot, and he was, gosh, I want to say 12. I could be wrong about that age, maybe 14, around that age, and he passed away. And I remember, like, obviously I know a lot of the people that were for sure there at his service, but like there was something calming about seeing her there and knowing, that she knew what this felt like. I don't want anyone to know what this feels like, but I remember like the hug from her was different. She was, when you go through something like that and you know other people that have gone through something like that, like you're just one with them now. They're part of you, you're a part of them. You're it it's there's a bond between you guys that's unspoken. And like I've also, I have a lot of friends now, and they're my friends because they've also lost a child. And I hate that that's how we're friends, but I'm also grateful that I don't have to completely walk this journey alone, and that we can. I don't know if you know or know Clyde Boljack and Sierra. I think it's Branson.
Yes.
Sierra and we've never met. We talk here and there, but it is really nice that we can vent to each other about things and relate to each other about things. I know both Sierra, and Kelsey. There is likely, I'm just guessing with Kelsey, I don't know from the things that I've said, and I hope not, but I know that we battle guilt and we battle what we could have done and the what ifs that happened in our situations. And Sierra's made some posts that are, touch on this very well, but like, I hope that she doesn't blame herself for anything, because if you are a believer in God and the afterlife, then you're also a believer in when it's somebody's time, there's no fighting it. It would have been that way or another way. It's not up to us, And even though I'm seeing it a little bit now with Kelsey, even though there's comments in the media when these stories get shared and they spread like they have, that, if she were to see them the way I saw them, are absolutely crushing and definitely make you think twice. But I just hope that anyone that's ever gets in these shoes or is through these shoes doesn't let the opinion of anyone who's never known them directly and known their heart and known the parent they are ever make them question that, because the people who know. And God,
Yeah, exactly right. And social media is a place for, there are so many nice people and strangers and people and family and friends, and there are so many good people. But very sadly and very frustrating to us all there are just a few people who are so hateful. They would never say anything like this to our face. But yesterday, for example, I saw people who have no idea posting like raw, bizarre, oh, here's what happened to Oakland. And I haven't seen any of it that's true. And I think, why would anyone do that? And on something that I wrote, a woman who knows none of us said, parents' fault. And I blocked her faster than I could take my next breath. But who would do this? And I don't know if you had to deal with any of this, but who? What do you? It's laughable, but there's nothing funny about it. It's hateful and horrible, and I don't know why people would do that. Did you have to go through any of that?
I went through that on a very extreme level,
Really?
and I've been very open. Like, I've never been suicidal. I did not get suicidal. However, I let these people who I don't know, who don't know me, who don't know the situation. Some of them were just comments that I happened to see, but some of them came directly to me in my inbox. I got text messages from people. It was horrifying. And it's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life, even though I've worked really hard to battle those things. It's just seeing them written in front of you. I can't not read them. And that's a really, really hard thing. And the reason why it gets to you is because you do have inner guilt. No matter what anyone says, people are like, don't blame you, parents. We do this all the time, and I get it. It's true, and they're right, and I understand. It doesn't change. Man, if I just had stayed out there with him, like the bottle didn't need washed right then, the laundry didn't need changed right then. Like it doesn't change. You're still gonna always have those what ifs, and things. But the media side of things is really hard. So I pray that she's stronger than me and she stays away from that and she doesn't know about the comments. I did see that People magazine, and I hate all those sleazy Entertainment
Knockoffs.
Tonight and
People that just copy and paste, run things through chat GPT for click.
right. Like they all wanted like quote unquote our story. I refuse to talk to anyone. For what? I remember finally by like the sixth person that was asking me, I said, "You guys make a substantial donation to the Levi Wright Foundation and you can have my story." Crickets. Crickets. And so they weren't I didn't need my face on the news. I didn't need to put it out there more than it already was and get eaten alive by critics from afar anyways, So I hope she's staying away from it, and I hope she's not letting people that don't know her heart, don't know our way of life, and make her second guess the mother that she was, because I saw the videos. I saw how that little girl looked at her. I saw how she looked at that little girl, that whole family. She loved her. She took great care of her. She was clothed. She was fed. She was emotionally taken care of, which there's so much to being a parent, and every box was checked. I can tell you that by looking at that little girl. Every box was checked. And people that come on there and say stuff like that, they don't know what they're doing to a person, and it's really, really hard to have to deal with that, but
Some couples, they don't survive the loss of a child.
this is true.
How have you and Spencer managed this?
I never even thought for a second that he would blame me or that he would get mad at me. I don't remember if I read a comment or like what made me think, and I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, are you mad at me? And he's like, no, Kallie, do you know how many times I've been out there with Levi and I've had my back turned welding a pipe and he's been driving his tractor around? Do you know how easily that could have happened with me? And I could have been right there, just had my back turned. And who knows how far and how fast he got taken downstream. Could have been right there and not stopped it. You really don't know. And so I mean, that right there, him just completely understanding how it happened. And he lived with me, he lives with us, he knows I'm a good mom. He chose me to be the mother of his kids for a reason. We've never had he's never blamed me for anything. And if anything, he's tried to get me to not blame myself. And he's just there for me. I mean, we go on drives, nowhere, just in the mountains all the time, and listen to this playlist that we call Levi's playlist, that are just songs that remind us of Levi or make us think of Levi. A lot of them are Disney songs in piano. And that's because when we were in the hospital, they played that for a week and a half, and I can't explain the calmness that those songs bring to us for some reason. You'd think they'd remind us of a terrible time, and they do, but they also remind us of good things too. But when we're having a hard time, we talk to each other about it. I'm not afraid to cry on him for no reason. And I don't know, he's just, I think everybody knows that I'm Spencer Wright's biggest fan, obviously, but he's an incredible human, an incredible husband. And I know that it definitely takes two. It's not just him or me. It definitely takes two to go through something like this. And and not let it wear on your marriage at all. But I think, his understanding and him having full faith that, I obviously would never let anything like that happen to Levi intentionally. He knows that.
Do you find yourself thinking, what would Levi be doing right now? And I'm imagining that you always will. We lost Lane Frost in 1989, and every time I talk to Elsie, we're still like, what do you think Lane would be doing right now? And do you do that? Do you do that already?
Around here, we talk about Levi all the time and like what he would be doing. My little boy, my 2-year-old Bray, he's rough. We talk about how Bray would probably be beating Levi up and Levi would be crying about it. Because Levi was so soft and tenderhearted. And I mean, there's probably not a day that goes by that we don't talk about Levi. My daughter still talks about him a lot. But it's definitely not, and I think that's part of like what helps us in our family is we don't try to not talk about it. We don't, if he crosses our mind, we just bring him up, or anything we see that he loved or reminds us of him, or like, I'm obviously, Spencer and I are both on Snapchat, and we have all these Snapchat memories pop up of him all the time. And, we laugh about him, we cry about him sometimes. But we have some videos that were made of him, when we lost him that Steely loves to watch. Bray knows who Levi is. He can point to his pictures and who he is, and he's very much going to be talked about and a part of our lives still. And we don't want to hide anything or make it weird. Honestly, I don't know any other way to put it, but
Well, people, I've asked some of my friends who've lost children, Genevieve or Jim and Susan Wakefield, like, because sometimes people will ask me, do you think I should say something? It's been 5 years. Will I make them sad if I bring it up or something? And I haven't talked to any parents who've lost a child who haven't said the same thing. Their worst fear is that everyone would just stop talking about them and forget about them.
I definitely think it makes some people uncomfortable sometimes when you bring them up because they don't know how to act. I usually am the one that breaks the ice because I'm like, I need them to like feed off my energy because they'll be like weird about it, so I'm usually the one that breaks the ice. And here's the thing though, even if we are sad and we do cry, it's okay. Like, we're okay to cry. We're okay to think of them in a sad light and a happy light, just to think of them in general, like, and there's really not anything that anyone can really say that, we're going to be super offended by.
Tell us about the Levi Wright Foundation and what your mission is with that.
So, to be honest, I did close that foundation after our event this year. For just personal reasons. It was me and my friend Kayla that started it. Kayla and I had a baby within a week of each other, which is why we closed it down. We both got pregnant. And just felt like we couldn't sustain that. And be the parents that we wanted to be. And I won't lie, it did take up quite a bit of our time. And one thing that I've learned is I want to still live for Levi, talk about Levi, have things with Levi, but I don't want to be so wrapped up in losing Levi and that being my identity that I miss out on my other children that are here, that are growing up, that need me and need my attention and everything. So we saw it through the 1 year, and we were able to donate to a couple of families that had lost kids. We were able to donate to a school in Uganda that had just supported us a lot during Levi being in the hospital. They painted some things, and They did a lot more. They were very, very kind, and we donated some to primaries as well. Obviously, the outcome there wasn't what we wanted, but my experience after that initial first day, I'm still friends with the nurse that took care of Levi most of the time. Um, she came to his service. That doctor, like I said, I'll never forget. Like, if it wasn't for her, I would have. I could be living a lot more what ifs right now if it wasn't for her. But primaries is a phenomenal hospital. So we did a few families, we did them, and we had the race and the auctions and everything, and it all went really, really well. And even though I'd love to be in a position where I could give back every single year, I knew that my true place was I was needed at home. I was needed with my other kids. And I did ask a friend that's also a producer to see if she would take on his barrel race. So we are still having a Levi Wright Memorial Barrel Race once a year. And I'm grateful that she was willing to take that on. But I'm also grateful to not be doing the foundation anymore. It is a lot of work, and also one thing I'm not very good at. Kayla was much better than me, but like when people know that you have a foundation and you help others out, I was receiving stories almost every day of situations where people wanted us to help them. And I really wanted to stay in that lane of like in the Western industry, in the lane of, tragic accidents, kind of that fit Levi's mold. And I couldn't just ignore those people, so I talked to all of them, but it was starting to consume me. And I felt like all I got was a lot of negativity and a lot of sadness. And it was just really, really hard for me to take on. So I think, if I had been able to find someone that could take it on, it would have been better. But it was just a lot of heaviness for me in that moment. There was a lot of great things to it too, but when you surround yourself around with so much like sadness and tragedy, and that's all I was, it weighs on you,
I
and I
do
needed to,
understand. Yeah, I really do understand that. And
yeah, I needed to kind of step away from that for my own mental health.
you know, well, you have a very, very busy, full life. And I mean, you look forward, I assume you got to keep moving forward, right? I mean, you don't forget
No. My
that today.
situation is a little bit different than Kelsey's and Sierra's. Obviously I have had other children. So it was, people are always like, "Oh, you're so strong." And I'm like, okay, but what choice did I have? You know, what was I to do? Like I couldn't, I mean, you lose one child and then you fall off the deep end and then your other children are ruined too because of it. Like that's not okay. And I need Levi to look down on us and be like, "That's my mom and dad. They're amazing." Look at them. Like, and I had a few people be like, "Oh, I lost my brother, at this and this age, and my mom did this and it was really hard on me." And I'm really grateful for those people who lost siblings growing up that shared their stories of, whether their parents struggled, whether their parents fought through it and still raised their other kids to the best of their ability. Like, I needed to hear that because it was absolutely no question for Spencer or I, what we were going to do and how we were going to move forward.
Well,
Your your love, it's interesting to me. I there's lots of love in families and stuff, but there's not always unselfish love. The kind of love where you do what's best for everybody around you and not necessarily what's for yourself. And those are the people that are true um, examples of Christ's love, right? Of of the love. I have a question. If you look back, now you're they say that grief comes in waves, and we've all lost people, and you see that, right? They're hitting you, hitting you, hitting you, and then oh, there's a little time. But as that's happening, and whether it's losing a child or any grief that someone's going through, help us understand what your go to. I'm assuming it's Spencer, right? That was, pardon the irony there. But what do you help us understand? People that are going through anything, you're so
Like my outlet.
yeah, you're so put together and rational. It's obvious for everybody, and it should be that there's a whole, right? That you have to learn to take your family around that whole. And I'm literizing here a little bit. What do you lean into? Like, what's your? Because you guys smile as a family now. How do you? What do you lean into? If you look back and say, if you're going through a tough time, yours was tragic. Help us understand what you've leaned into because you're such an inspiration. And you're not going to say that. You're going to say, what was I supposed to do? But you really are. What do you
Well, there's a number of things I would say. Like, obviously, like, this road would look very different for me and Spencer both if we didn't have each other. It definitely has made us unbreakable, I would say. And then my other children, I lean into them a lot. I ride my horses a lot. When I get out and get to do horses, I'm just just that, nothing else. I'm kind of escaping my reality, when I'm home and things, and obviously there's memorabilia every which way you look in this house, which is I put it there. I want it there. I want to remember him. But sometimes it has its moments where it makes you smile, and sometimes it has its moments where it makes you cry. Um, but if I could do it all again, knowing what I know now, I would. I'd still be Levi's mom. I'd still have him here, even if I knew I had to give him back at some point. Um, I'm a very intuitive person, and just like that morning that I had to check their car seats so many times, I've always felt strongly that I was going to go through something super tragic in my life. And as crazy as it sounds, I was able to have conversations with myself about how I would handle those things. I didn't necessarily think I would lose a child, um, but I thought about how I would navigate that and how I would go through it. And the biggest thing really for Spencer and I both is, like I said earlier, is Levi. Like I would never want him to like look down on us and be like, wow, mom and dad really had it going, until they lost me and everything fell apart, and for him to maybe feel blame, like I needed to live in such a way that he would be proud of us, and and I always also say I like to live in a way that like God doesn't have to worry about me. I don't want him to worry about me. I don't want Levi to worry about me. Like I want them to be like, they got this. They can handle this. And I think too that there's some poems and stuff I read and things that I truly do believe is that God chose us to be Levi's parents, knowing that he would return. And I can't remember exactly what this one poem says, but like for him to trust you that much to give you that, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, that job or that
Like
duty.
responsibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think says a lot. And You know, I just, I, it is, if you love your child in life, you have to love them in death too. And, and you're their example. We're still Levi's example. And that's important to both of us.
The fact that you say he looks down reinforces probably in that week and a half the decisions. If you're going to believe, you have to believe that there's more than here, right? You're going to be a believer, and that and he's in the arms of family and Jesus, and that's it's just everything you say has pointed to that, and that in itself is some of the strength. I can just hear it in your voice, right?
Well, and I won't lie, I have gaps where I struggle and I have a lot of questions. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need the answers right now. I know that I'm gonna have them all at some point. And anytime I'm doubting, you know, like I was really struggling with the fact that Levi, my shy little Levi, didn't have anybody up there that he knew that he was comfortable with. And I kept saying, Spencer, he's alone though. He's alone. He doesn't, who is he going to be with? You know, I'm like, he doesn't know anyone. And, I remember Spencer telling me that he did know them. He knew them before and he'll remember them after. And then he said to me that, what feels like a lifetime here on earth is like only seconds in heaven. And that whatever it wasn't, it made me feel better knowing that like he wasn't going to be up there for what feels like a lifetime waiting for us. Does that make sense? Spencer always knows what to say when it comes to that stuff. So he definitely reminds me and reiterates that and stuff, because I do have my moments that I'm like, if this is true, then why this or this or this, you know? And he's like, true, but also why this? And I'm like, okay, you're right. Like, I have my moments and I'm in struggle from time to time, but I definitely don't want to convince myself otherwise, you know? And I'm really grateful that I can openly have these questions and these concerns with him, and he can give me the answers that I need, or not even just the answer, but sometimes the question I need to battle the other question, you know? But it's definitely like, I don't, some of my friends that I've lost, their faith is a lot stronger than mine is. It seems like they don't question it as much as I feel like I do. And maybe they do. Maybe we just, you know, we like to pretend that we don't or something, but I just keep learning to try and get more.
You pull your boots on and you keep walking and leading your family. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's got to be, I can't imagine. I mean, even in the small little things in all of our lives that don't compare to yours, we get angry, right? At God, we get angry at the situations, and they're nothing in comparison to what you've been through. So that's normal. But man, I haven't said much because what you've shared is just like, thank you. You don't realize it, but maybe. But what an inspiration to seriously, like, the raw sincerity, and you're not pretending like everything's okay, and you're not going to let everything crash around you. And you and Spencer as a team with your family. Just praise God. Like, it's just, I think the world needed to hear that. The other thing that was interesting is my wife and I were talking, and I said, when we were kids, it just didn't seem like there was as many things, but that's the good and the bad of this new phone in our hand.
Yes.
This thing was these things were there were just as
There's a
many
lot more
tragic.
awareness.
Yeah, there's so much more awareness. It goes worldwide, so you get worldwide support and worldwide jerks, right?
Correct.
All of that we've covered. But back in the day, it was just the community. It didn't. Your story didn't go worldwide.
Yeah, I started writing, obviously, and sharing what was going on with Levi on my page. I wanted to keep everybody updated, and that's how I used my resources to find all those neurologists and learn as much as I did, because I used social media for that, to help me gain contacts to people and neurologists. And it is crazy how small of a world it is, because I wouldn't have been able to talk to so many wonderful doctors across the nation if it hadn't have been that way. And there are times, especially with the media, and feeling like I was eaten alive by a lot of people and blamed. And anytime I see this happen to other people, like there's an influencer named Emily Kaiser whose son drowned in Arizona. There was another one, and she texted me too. And I'm grateful that these moms will reach out to me when they've been in those situations, especially with the media and how hard that is, what people say to them. This other mom and family, they went boating on the 4th of July in Arizona. I don't know if it was Tahoe or Havasu. I want to say it was Lake Havasu. And everybody was like, everybody knows you don't go boating, in Lake Havasu because it's so hot. And it was her husband, and then their toddler and their infant. And their infant passed away on the boat. And the media ate her alive. And I remember in that moment, I just mama bared for her so hard. I was so angry to see all of these people just deciding that they knew exactly what happened. And they did. They ate her alive. I heard from her 11 months after her accident. And she was like, how did you have the courage to stay on social media? And I said, well, I have thousands of pending friend requests on my Facebook, and I'm scared to death to add the wrong person. I have thousands on my Instagram, and I'm scared to death to add the wrong person. I have my Right for Levi page, which I leave open, and if anything comes across there that's remotely mean, I remove it. It doesn't need to be there. So if you want to waste your time writing a comment, it's going to get deleted. But she got off social media, and she was pressured into hiding, and she just went through hell, all to get her baby's autopsy results back and learn that her baby aspirated on breast milk. That's what her baby died from. The entire world believed that this baby died of heat stroke, and that the parents were just out there partying and not paying attention to this baby. This was a breastfed baby. Like, obviously mom is doing everything, if not more, to take care of this baby. And that could have happened in their own home. And she was pressured into hiding for almost a year because of a story that everybody thought they knew so well, and they didn't. And it's the same thing with Kelsey, and it's nobody's job to put out there what happened. It doesn't even matter. The result is what matters. Like, I think we're all curious in nature, and I have no problem sharing what happened with Levi. And if anybody still wants to blame me, one thing I know for sure is that you've made a mistake as a parent. It hasn't had a consequence that big yet, which is why you don't recognize it. But
it's your story to tell.
Exactly.
And that's the part right now for me. I've had 3,000 to 5,000 people message me what exactly happened, and I say there was an accident.
Right. And we're curious in nature, and I think a lot of it is, well, we want to know what happened so we can make sure it doesn't happen to us. Like I think that's where most people are coming from is, can we prevent this from happening to us? And you probably think you can, just like all the perfect parents that are leaving ignorant comments on social media and saying that it's the parents' fault. Oh, I read one on People magazine today. Well, my mother would have never let me. And I said, I bet you had your seatbelt off in the car half the time and your mom didn't know it. I bet your mom maybe didn't have her car seat done up right. I bet, she walked away from you to take a shower at least once and you could have gotten into who knows what. I mean, there are so many possibilities out there of things that could happen when you're not looking, and it's not possible to have your eyes.
I don't think you can live with your family in fear also, right? Because
Absolutely not.
that's not healthy, right? You can't be stupid. I understand that. But the flip side is you can be crippled. You can cripple the joy out of your family with paranoia, can't you?
Yes. And that's a battle that I face now is not helicopter parenting my other kids and letting them live a little bit. I mean, I know that Levi lived more in 3 years than some kids do in their entire lifetime. And I don't regret giving him some independence and room to roam and be a little boy, and I'm not going to let anyone convince me that I'm negligent because of a body of water that never ever has water in it. And I'm sorry, like it's not always at the forefront of your mind when it's at your home. If you take your kids to the lake or you take your kids to the pool, you're like this constantly. Life jackets are on. You're constantly paranoid because you took them to the water. But when the water is at your house, it's going to be out of sight, out of mind at some point. It can't be the number one thing that you're thinking about the whole time. And anyone that has a pool or a pond or anything like that, like, I mean, we have irrigation ponds everywhere around here. It could have even not been the creek. I don't know, but I do know that for whatever reason, Levi was going to go home one way or another. And I hate it. I wish it were different, but I accept it at this point. I mean, what else can I do but accept it? And as far as, helping others and whatnot, I have days where I just want to completely get off social media. I want to crawl into a hole and I don't want to be seen. I want to disappear. I want people to wonder where's she been, where she's gone. Like I want nothing to do with anything. And then I have days where on my Right for Levi page, I have people say, you've helped me with this happened to me, and if it wasn't for you, I would do this. Or I have other people message me and say, I feel like since your accident, I parent my kids different, and I do this, and this is more important. And it helping some of those other people in my words and my experiences and sharing what I can share helps me a lot. It brings me some peace, and maybe it's a little bit of my purpose here, to be able to do that, because even though sometimes I want to be like, I'm not saying another word, something like that will happen, and I'm really grateful that I can be that for someone else.
You said we are still Levi's example, but your example, your willingness to speak openly on this is a priceless gift to a lot of people that you will never meet. So I'm very thankful and grateful to you for talking to us about this.
Yeah, and it helps me too. Like it's not just a one-way street. It gets every thought, every emotion off my chest. I am, if anything, an overshare, and I don't bottle anything up. I'm not even capable of it. Ask my husband. Like, you're gonna know exactly how I feel in the moment that I feel it. But it does.
That feels like a blessing. That feels like a blessing for this, though, because the thought of keeping any of this inside doesn't seem like it would be a benefit to you.
No, no. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I keep going and I keep writing and I keep sharing because of the people that come forward and tell me how it's helped them. And I guess what I need them to know is it helps me too.
Well, can you share your Instagram, and do you mind sharing it for those? Because there may be people that listen to this that can use what God's doing with you, right?
And it's not a huge thing. I'll be honest, like a week's without even looking at it. It's just when I have my moments and I need to share something, I just go vomit of the mouth, I guess, and let it go. And then I get off of it again because sometimes I'm a little nervous about the comments that might come through, which I haven't received any. I have had like one person be like, "What happened to this little boy?" and stuff. Like I said, it's everybody wants to know. But I'm fairly open about that. But my Instagram that's open to everyone is Wright, our last name Wright, .for.Levi. And so I've wrote about just some of my experiences and my feelings, and I try not to sugarcoat anything because it's not all positive and uplifting, and it's not all strength and everything that people can say to you and stuff, and I appreciate those things. I do. I just am like, there's a lot of you that would be doing the same things, but I hope you never have to.
Well, thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you. Thank you for being part of sharing with us. God bless you and your family.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate you sharing. It's just like a cup of coffee at a table. What a wonderful thing. So thank you so much. Thank you
Of
very
course.
much.
Of
Well,
course.
thank all of you. Thank all of you. Thank you to Kallie for being a part of our show. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you again next time here on No Spin Rodeo. God bless all of you. Hug the ones you love.